So, mind blown, this guy's gonna be a beast. One single quote that he must say in this new form is, "Magic isn't everything." I'm basically going to talk about all the units one by one. I'm going to talk about the weapons they come with, and maybe some build suggestions, and then at the end of it I'll kind of look at the orb analysis, how you should spend your orbs, what I'm planning to do, and how you can go from there to make some good decisions, both as an experienced player or a new player, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna look at their level 40 stats. Let's take a quick look at the weapon that this guy comes with. War God's Tome. At the start of the turn, inflicts attack and res 4 in all cardinal directions, with res that's slower than the unit's res. Okay, so that's pretty much the only one I don't know. The other ones I kind of know by heart. Looking at the actual units here, it looks like the stat spread on Sias is actually very similar to Arvis, and even has a tome that's very similar to Arvis, but instead of being a red mage like Arvis, he's a blue mage. One thing I did want to take a look at, I wanted to look at Nino and Tharja over here, which is why I clicked on Tharja. You don't see it over here because my head is blocking it. But yeah, it looks like adds total bonuses on unit damage dealt didn't account for spurs and such. Okay. Anyways, Sias is basically going to be a blue Arvis. So what that means is, one thing that makes him different than Arvis is the fact that he doesn't have a recover ring. So I don't know how I feel about this, because recover ring is what made Arvis such a great support unit. Arvis's support role by having recover ring made that he could both debuff the enemy team and provide some very consistent healing every turn. So because he's also blue, I don't know how to feel about blue being here. Like, blue mages are pretty good, but greens are, they seem to be in a little bit of a better spot because there's a lot of oppressive threats that are blue. So, like Reinhardt, for instance, especially if you're new to the game or you just kind of started, green is one of the better colors for you to have, with a lot of threats still being blue, like Reinhardt himself. And then I guess with, like, if you had like a red mage like Arvis, he could still fulfill a support role by healing, but Sias doesn't really seem to have that sort of stuff. So I don't know, like, he's not like the worst free unit we've had. He's gonna have a Grand Hero battle maybe that's comparable to somebody else, like more niche. I think like Legion, or you could probably have somebody, I don't know, Takumi even. Takumi's pretty good, but like, yeah, the unit isn't like spectacular. If you don't already have Arvis, then Sias is pretty much going to be like the blue version of him without the healing support. One thing that's interesting, though, is the fact that Arvis is actually going to be on the new daily rotation coming up of the new Grand Hero battle units. So you shouldn't have any problem getting Arvis either. And if you were to spend 20,000 feathers between Sias and Arvis, I think Arvis is currently the better choice. Unless you've, for some reason, already had a red mage, in which case Sias could fulfill your need for a blue mage. That's kind of what I'm going to say with that. The build is very similar to what you would do with Sias that you would on Arvis, which is basically the Fury build. Then you could run something like a ploy in his C slot. Could be defense ploy, just like Arvis. Could be res ploy, speed ploy. He has the res to make it work. And with Fury, his speed goes up to a decent, respectable stat, especially if you're using something like speed ploy. Again, his seal can also be a ploy, speed ploy, defense ploy, right? These are all pretty good choices. I don't know if I said res ploy, but if I said res ploy, I take it back because he already has attack and res on his tome. Anyway, speed or defense ploy, basically you can put both on his seal and his C slot, and he becomes really good. I didn't check whether he has speed ploy or not, but basically make him like a ploy bot. The problem is he's not gonna have like, recover ring like his red version does. So, great debuffer. Let's talk about Reinhardt. In yesterday's first impressions, I basically predicted that Reinhardt would have a very similar stat spread. I've noticed this sort of trend with how they've approached, other units in the past. They kind of give them similar stat spreads. If you actually look at Zelgius' stat spread, it's very similar to Black Knight, but since he got like BSD power creeped, it's basically the same thing. So far I've noticed that they do kind of keep that sort of trend. Even if you look at Olwen right beside him, right beside Reinhardt, you see that she also has a similar stat spread to her original version. They did give her more attack this time though, so I guess they took a little bit of res and possibly HP and gave it to her attack stat, because everyone realizes that the other Olwen just didn't have as much attack. The thing that Reinhardt has as a weapon is that Master Sword. It's called Meister Schwartz. Mr. Schwartz? Mr. Schwartz? Yeah, I'm not doing German, but anyways, that's my attempt at it. It looks like they fixed his hand size. Looks like it's actually more proportionate to what it should be. So, yeah. Anyways, he's like a dual phase unit. Think of him like Arden on a horse, right? He has follow-up ring built into his weapon. So he doesn't need the speed because he's always doubling, or in this case quadding, if you do give him something like a breaker in his B slot. And that's insane. Like, Arden's already amazing if you already know how good Arden is. If you've ever used him in an armor team, the guy's a beast. So if you put Arden on a horse, then you have this monstrosity that can also benefit from mobility and hone cavalry and fortify cavalry, which is just insane, the sort of mobility and combat prowess that Reinhardt has. If the old Reinhardt was S tier, this guy's also going to be S tier. He's actually ridiculous. You can use him on both phases, and he has mixed bulk. That means that you could, unlike Arden, who basically was fearing all sorts of magic, Reinhardt is like, magic isn't everything, and give me distant counter, and boom, I'm just enemy phasing your pathetic mage over there because I know how to use magic better than you. So, mind blown, this guy's gonna be a beast. It doesn't even matter if he gets doubled, because if you consider fortify cavalry, maybe if you really wanted to, you could use like ward cavalry, ally supports. Imagine summoning supporting him, and he's literally just killing everything. This for a red cavalry is actually insane, because most cavalry units were sticking to one phase. Like, they'd either player phase like crazy, you'd have units like Elwood. I mean, Elwood could enemy phase, but it'd be a slightly different build. But he, like, built in has that dual phase capabilities, and you know, you could give him distant counter, and boom, he's just like beating all mages. You know, other red horses. You know, Xander has to do enemy phase. Eldigan could probably do a dual phase pretty well. I think the new Crom that came out recently, that was also a red horse, can do dual phase pretty well. Yeah, he could do dual phase pretty well, especially with like a Fury Desperation reaching like 40 speed with horse buffs and such. So there's a couple of dual phase units, but none of them had that guaranteed like really good mixed bulk and being able to guaranteed doubles regardless of speed. Like, this is an extremely strong thing. So, you know, for the A slot, changing it out to something like distant counter means that you'd have so much flexibility, you'd have so much mobility by being on a horse. Red is a fine color, beating, you know, big threats like Grima, for instance. And of course, because this is red stat, you probably won't have that problem. You know, you could probably beat out the new flying Grima as well, unless she runs close defense with Dragon Skin, you probably won't take that much damage. But then again, maybe with Death Blow and Hone Cavalry ally supports, you probably could pull it off and everything. One single quote that he must say in this new form is, "Magic isn't everything." Vantage Brave Sword, he attacks twice on enemy phase. Are we sure about that? Okay, he hasn't been released, but if that's a fact, that's actually ridiculously broken. Distant counter Vantage, and he's just gonna double everything? That's how it works in Fire Emblem 5? Okay, I know the real reason that Reinhardt got released, okay? Because he's like the 5th most popular character in Fire Emblem Heroes right now, and he's probably gonna become even more popular after this. Now, if you take one of these and you open it up, money seems to appear out of here, right? Money seems to appear out of here. And the thing is, Intelligent Systems really likes this stuff that comes out of your wallet. So if you take this and give it to Reinhardt over there, then Intelligent Systems is happy, and you get the king of memes. As a quick forewarning, I'm not going to be pulling for him as much as I like him. Out of this whole batch, he's the only one that I actually like the most. But I hope maybe in the future he'll pity break me. Builds are endless here. You could probably keep him with his default set and still do a lot of work based on how his weapon works, but there's some pretty disgusting things coming up. Alright. Also, Cubone did some work here with the art. I kind of like that hand. Like, I feel like he's memeing with the hand by putting it there, and then like Owen kind of has a hand there, and they got like the cape is that. It's just kind of interesting. Okay, so new Owen does have that new legendary blade tome. And the legendary blade tome is interesting, although it has 2 huge advantages over a standard ground blade tome, okay? The first one is it doesn't increase your cooldown charge. That's pretty good, definitely pretty good. There's a lot of situations where, you know, putting a 2-charge special like Moonbow or Glimmer up to 3 just ends up being really annoying. So keeping it at 2 means it's more consistent. You'll be able to, you know, charge it better for certain fights and such. And I like that a lot. It also means if you do end up using Fury Desperation on the A and the B slot combination, you're going to end up, you know, being able to run something like Luna instead of Moonbow and Glimmer because it'll go to 3 charge. And that means that every second combat you'll get that charge through using Fury and Desperation. The attack stat is also 1 stat higher than Gromblade, 13 to 14. I don't think that's really that important, but yeah, it's still something to consider. The cooldown charge is the biggest thing here. What's also interesting is that she is indeed a green horse, and she now competes with Gunthra for the best green fastest horse unit. Now Gunthra had 35 speed as well, I believe, but Gunthra had Blizzard and Chilling Seal running for her, so if you change her to a Gromblade mage using Fury Desperation, you'd end up losing out on both Blizzard and Desperation. So now that you have Owen here on the permanent pool, with a green legendary tome, that's just going to be straight up better than Gunthra doing it. So yeah, I'm definitely impressed. They didn't seem to keep her low attack stat, so I'm grateful. And just like any Blade Mage that you build, you basically just give them Fury Desperation. Keep her Grey Bulk, she has 30 res. 22 defense won't be bad either. Gives you a solid 56 bulk on physical and a really, really good 64 res resistance bulk, which is impressive, and I don't recommend trashing that with Life and Death. If you trash her with Life and Death, you're just going to make her super squishy and honestly struggle to get into Desperation range in some matchups. Just make it easy on yourself and use Fury Desperation. She's not going to miss kills running like full horse buffs, come on. You could also run her on a mixed tactic teams. It doesn't necessarily have to be a full like horse team. Same with Reinhardt. Tactic teams are interesting nowadays. So, Leif. I like this character, not because I played the game, but I remember kind of in Awakening. Like, do you guys remember in Awakening there was those DLC maps where they had like changed art on characters, right? Like, for instance, Alm was like a Dread Fighter in the Awakening DLCs, and you like battled him, and then you battled against Leif, and he had like a Lights brand or something. Like, that was pretty cool. So maybe some of you guys remember that. But either way, I kind of like Leif's like aesthetic. I never really played his game. At some point, I probably will. His stat spread is pretty interesting. He's gonna be pretty susceptible to magic damage. In fact, his stat spread is similar to like Mia, I'd say, just with more defense. It's actually similar to Ira as well. But in that case, a little bit less attack, less speed as well. Now remember that Mia does have 40 speed. Ira has 37, but it's +3 from her blade. Well, so you could just give her a slaying edge, same kind of result there. One other thing to consider though is that Long Q, I think, also has 39 speed. So he doesn't necessarily have like the highest speed ever, but it's a really good base speed stat, especially with like a plus speed IV. You could bring it up to 41, do some good work. I think the most appealing factor of Leif himself is going to be his Lights brand, which should work in a lot of cases actually, because what it does is you attack, and then if the unit that you fight has a difference between the defense and resistance, if you actually look at the defense and the resistance stat, it's more than 5 apart. So that means he gets 7 added damage onto his attack, which is actually insane. Because a lot of units have this sort of discrepancy. Like, you can just look at the units that just got released, right? Would hit Finn, would hit Leif himself, wouldn't hit Olin, but he would end up just doing a lot of damage there anyways because of her low defense. Doesn't hit Reinhardt, because Reinhardt's a beast. And again, you just end up doing a lot of damage to the units who don't have that discrepancy. So if a unit doesn't have mixed bulk, they basically get punished by Leif. So, super cool. The other skill that makes him really awesome, I'd say, is Stamina Drink, which is like fully heals him, 99 HP heal, and -1 cooldown charge. I think that's really cool, especially if you like modes like Tempest Trials and Chain Challenges. So he's probably going to become one of the best units for that reason. I think that'll just be fun. Like, I don't necessarily think it's like the best skill ever, but I think it's fun. One other cool thing that you can, consider with that is because that's the first skill with like a cooldown reduction on the B skill, it means that Leif can benefit for some crazy cooldown reduction builds. Like, he can literally have 3 units on the team with infantry pulse, his stamina drink for 4 charges reduced, and then if you give him quick impulse, he literally has an Aether turn 1 with his Lights brand equipped. Like, that's pretty crazy, and I'm expecting to see, like, these kind of random YOLO, you know, builds. Like, if there was, like, a 6-charge special, you could give him Slaying Edge, and then he would have that as turn 1 because of all this cooldown reduction. Like, you could choose not to even give him Quick Impulse, just give him Slaying Edge, and boom, you end up with, like, a turn 1 Aether. I don't know, these kind of, like, crazy shenanigans. Like, it's possible with Leif. I think like most units though, because of his really, you know, good stat spread, you're going to want to consider using him with either Distant Counter in A or Fury 3. Like Fury 3 basically works on any unit that can appreciate all of the stats, right? So attack, speed, defense, res. He's going to appreciate every single stat. So why not go with it? And I think Fury actually synergizes really well if you do end up giving him something like Wrath in the B slot instead of his stamina drink, if you want to use them in more combat-oriented situations. But even if you don't, Fury in the A slot, one of the biggest problems with Tempest Trials and Chain Challenges is all that like residual damage. But if you do use them in those modes, you can keep stamina drink, Fury, and then you becomes like a farming master with great potential. No stamina drink is not going to be inheritable. So yeah, I'm going to be impressed by that. I think you can make some really creative builds with Leif here. Okay, so next up we got Nana. And finally, this is like our first healer to be released for almost a year. She does come with one new skill on her staff ability, which is Restore Plus. And Restore Plus is a very unique staff, and honestly a very unique support skill in general, which is that you basically can remove any debuff in the game. So forget like getting debuffed by ploys or threatens or whatever. You literally can remove Panic, Gravity, Candlelight, like all these random buffs. And I think it's a remove, it's not a reverse. So you're not like, it's not like Harsh Command where you bring it opposite, you just remove it, which is great. Like if you, I think it's just an interesting ability. It could end up being really useful on some other healers. It heals as much as Physics Staff, so it's not as safe as Physics Staff, but it's still gonna heal a fair amount. Unless you're using a really like low attack healer. Her attack healer is, yeah, like she's fairly low, but her speed stat's pretty good, and she has decent, decent bulk otherwise. Competing with Clarine actually. I believe Clarine had a very high speed stat, also a low attack stat, and decent bulk as well. So very similar kind of stat spread as Clarine. Clarine's easier to get and build though, so if you were thinking of doing like a highly merged horse healer, I think Clarine might be, just as good of a choice. If you're gonna end up pulling for Nana, like you'd have to do it out of love for the character. Similar builds to this are gonna be like, low attack really likes pain builds with Savage Blow on both the Seal and the C slot. You could end up running like gravity builds with repositioned spams from other horses to just end up kiting units. Utility, you don't necessarily have to go for pure damage. Her high bulk does let her do some really nifty stuff. I think you could possibly do like a close counter absorb build here, even though her attack isn't the highest. Benefiting from horse buffs are going to help you out here to make sure that you can both survive a lot of things and heal up a decent amount with absorb plus, like considering, the sort of buffs you can give her. And since she doesn't come with anything like super unique, no legendary staff, or just Restore being like a nice staff but not necessarily anything special, I do think that she will get promoted out of the ones here, because these are the 4 that we just went over that were on the banner, and all of them are very, very, very strong or very unique, and by having skills or bringing something extremely new to the table. While Nana seems to just be the most underwhelming here. Even though Nana comes with 5 skills, one thing to consider is that she technically comes with 4 skills if you don't actually consider Restore Plus as like a skill that comes on most units. Because she's a healer, she's expected to come with that skill, and therefore technically she should be like 4. 36 HP, 21 defense, 26 res, high bulk. I mean, yeah, with 34 speed, and then you consider fortified cavalry, it's actually over 60 bulk, which is great for a colorless unit actually. So you can meme all you want how that's not great bulk, but it actually is, especially considering her comparisons to both Elise and Priscilla, who have less bulk than her. Not including magic damage, but having that defensive, ability is really good. Clarine is comparable though. Okay. So the last unit coming up here is Finn. He does appear to have attack defense 2, Brave Lance plus, and I believe it was some sort of cavalry buff, a ward or a goad, not sure which one. Either way, he does come with Brave Lance plus, as a free 5-star, which is great. Like that's really great, especially for something like my free-to-play account, which can pretty much appreciate any sort of fodder. His stat spread's also pretty nice. It's actually not too bad. You don't have to keep him with his Brave Lance set. He could be a very good user of Slaying Lance, for instance, considering he has 32 defenses and his attack and speed are very, very respectable. You could use, you could end up with like Berkut's Lance even with this encounter, because if you want to give him like a mixed tank build, he could run that also. So, I think he has a decent stat spread to be able to do, whatever you want him to do. He's not really having any sort of glaring weakness other than res. And, the thing with that is just basically don't fight any mages. Yeah, don't run into mages, and you won't have that sort of problem. And again, if you really wanted him to counter that sort of mage, like Berkut's Lance is a good option for him. Yeah, you pretty much give him like cavalry buffs in the C slot. A's, if you're gonna keep his Brave Lance, then you want to give him probably Swift Sparrow or Life and Death or Death Blow. Any of those three options could be pretty good. I don't really think Life and Death might be the best choice though, just because you'd be tarnishing his pretty respectable defense stat anyways. So maybe something just keep like Death Blow, give him like Swordbreaker and B, and just end up becoming like some crazy, like a good stat spread Able. So what I'd see out of this. So yeah, great free unit for us. I'm happy about that. Definitely, like overall these units are, pretty good. I guess the ultimate question is, will I pull for them, and should you pull for them? Well, I don't have an interesting banner. I don't have an actual, like, orb analysis this time for these units, but I'm going to use something comparable, which we can just use this. There is no, we have 2 greens here. I'm not really going to focus too much on the actual orbs needed to summon something. I'm more going to like kind of give you first impressions on how much orbs you can in general expect to use on these sort of, pulls. There's no red here, but yeah, we're basically saying like you have generally a low chance spending lots of orbs to pull one of these units, which means that you generally shouldn't pull for permanent banners because you don't end up having good value out of it. Like, since we have a colorless unit on the banner, we can use Kaguro as an example, right? Kaguro is 159 orbs, which is comparable to targeting like a Nana here, right? 159 orbs on average. The median every second person, 118 orbs to get a Kaguro, which in this case could be comparable to Nana, and that means that you will end up spending, over 100 orbs for one unit. And that's not even guaranteed. You could end up being really unlucky and 352 orbs for that one single unit. So I don't really think spending that many orbs for a unit is in general a good idea. When honestly you're looking at what I would consider, where your orbs should be spent, seasonal banners, because these units are limited. Now, if you, for example, let's say Nana was in the permanent pool and you were pulling for Spring Kaguro, and on the way of spending that 159 orbs, you ended up getting pity broke by somebody like Nana because she's in the permanent pool. That's what I'm saying. Basically, if you save your orbs and spend it on more limited units like this, then you will end up likely getting pity breaks of, these units. Now, this is extremely important because these numbers aren't going to be very, they aren't going to be very useful right now because the permanent pool has changed a lot. There's not as much 5-star focus units now saturating the pool. So I'd expect all these numbers to be a little bit lower, probably like 100, 120 orbs or something. But I still think it'll be roughly about 100 orbs for you to pull a 5-star focus unit. And that's still not too great because if you compare it to something like legendary banners where you spend on average about 40 orbs for a 5-star focus, and you could really rack up your 5-star units that way. So if you're a new player, basically using your orbs on legendary banners is always going to be a good decision because you can rack up a lot of 5-star units, get some really good fodder that way, get some blessings, get some, just generally high quality units off legendary banners. There's no pity breaks there, but if you do end up rolling for seasonal units, which are limited, usually they come with exclusive unit types or exclusive skills. Bold fighters and vengeful fighters, for instance, used to be exclusive skills, now they're not. So you basically just rolled for these units, and on the way you'd be pity broken by these units, which are on a permanent banner. And that's what I'm trying to say. Now with the pool being reduced, squished, there's a good chance that Reinhardt could pity break you, literally the banner next that you could end up rolling for seasonal units. So why not save a couple hundred orbs, roll for the next banner, and then, you know, just be happy with the fact that you know, Reinhardt is pity breaking you. I can't begin to explain how many times I've had people already start complaining that Myrrh broke their pity rate. That characters like Grima broke their pity rate, okay? Like these, if you skipped their banner and then pull it as you usually do, you would have more orbs than you did now to pull for that desired, you know, exclusive seasonal unit, and then not complain that these other really good units pity broke you, right? Like for now, the green colorless pity rate pool has 11 5-star exclusives right now. That means you have a 1 in 11 chance to get Grima, 1 in 11 chance for Hector, 1 in 11 chance for Amelia, 1 in 11 chance for Myrrh. Why are you pulling on permanent unit banners, when all these high quality units can show up on the next seasonal units, which you could miss for a total, like it could be almost half a year until you see those units again. So my strong recommendation for anyone, whether you're free to play or you spend lots of money, don't pull on permanent banners, because you'll see the units in months down the road. Be patient, ignore the hype train, and just go from it for there. So me, no, I'm not pulling. I love Reinhardt. I think he's amazing. I think he's a really like very high charisma character. I can't possibly compare it to the charisma that Reinhardt has. So, you know, I hope one day I can pull him. I don't think he's gonna get demoted like he did last time. I think it would be really ironic though if Olin got demoted, but anyways, beyond that, I think, you know, Reinhardt, I'm gonna wait, I'm gonna be patient, and I recommend you guys do too. Anyways, thanks for watching my analysis on this, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.